Hello everyone, my name is Akal and I am a somatic therapist as well as an astrological counselor. If you'd like to find out a little bit more about the work I do, you can check out my website, which I have posted down below this video. So what we're going to talk about today is Bharani Nakshatra. So the thing about Bharani Nakshatra is I think the symbols for Bharani make a lot of sense. But before I go into the symbols, let me explain the purpose of this video as well as the purpose of this whole series of videos I'm doing, which is actually looking at the padas, or the 4 subdivisions. But I'm not going to go into those necessarily in terms of like the characteristics and things like that. What I'm going to look at is how are the planetary energies intertwining? And so what we have to look at here is Bharani, for instance, sits within Aries. So Aries is ruled by Mars. So Bharani, though, specifically is ruled by Venus. So how do Mars and Venus intertwine? And then let's say you were born in the second pada. So if you're born in the second pada, then you're looking at Mars with Venus with Mercury. And how do these energies, I guess, create this amalgamation of who you are in terms of this particular nuance that the nakshatras represent. So now the thing about Mars, again, this is the overarching energy here. Mars is very instinctual energy. It's very proactive, it's very driven, it's very movement oriented. It is the earliest energy. You can think about, the baby pops out of the womb and it's moving already. That is Mars. Mars is just, essentially the physical expression of the sun's vitality. So this vitality, this energy that's moving through us, which is provided by the sun, then gets channeled through Mars. Now, it's not conscious energy though. It's instinctual. And so I kind of think about Mars as trial and error energy in some ways, meaning that it's a bit like it's early energy, it's very youthful, it's exploding, it's rich, but it's kind of slamming into things like a teenage boy. So it's a little bit out of control potentially. So, and this is true, with pretty much all 3 of the nakshatras that fall within Aries, is there is a sort of out of control aspect, which is usually remedied by meditation, yoga, etc. Now, Bharani is particularly interesting because what we're looking at with Bharani is, and this is due to the influence of Venus, is what happens when you have all this Mars energy, which is materialistic, it's externally focused, it's driven, it's going towards whatever the goal is. Then you add Venus. So Venus adds in a level of, what do I desire? What do I want to attract and manifest in this life? So Venus kind of puts you in connection with your sensory experience of life, your sensuality, things like that. So Bharani can get sidetracked by getting really, really hooked into sex. And one of the reasons that is because, again, it's a very sensory experience. And again, if we're talking about instinctual energy here, instinctual plus sensual, well, that's sex. So the thing is that they can learn to take it to the next level, like all the nakshatras can evolve through meditation, etc. So the thing about Bharani here, in terms of the symbols, I guess, tell us a lot. So Yama, which is the god of death, and the Yoni, which is the vagina. So we've got 2 symbols here. We have death and then vagina, which in many ways implies a birth. And so we have birth and death cycle going on here. The padas kind of reflect this birth and death cycle to some extent. The reason is that these are fast-moving planets. Obviously, the sun is the central figure for the entire solar system, but Mercury moves very quickly, Venus moves quickly, Mars moves quickly. So fast-paced change here. So this very fast-paced change nakshatra that goes on here, again, this is very materialistic still, again, because we're talking about ruled by Mars. However, this is moving from that sort of activity for the sake of activity into anchoring into the material, and that is because its expression is tamasic. And what do I mean by tamasic? So tamasic is density. So the previous nakshatra Ashwini was rajasic energy, which is very positive, proactive, and it's moving towards whatever the goals are. Tamasic energy wants to anchor into something solid, into density, into the material. So that energy plus Venus means that these folks are the beginning of, I guess, the individual, the I, moving towards manifesting what it values. So now looking specifically at the padas, if you were born in, say, pada 1, so Bharani pada 1, what you're going to have is a little extra willpower specifically, meaning you can dig deep, access some juice when you need it. So there's just a little more juice for these people. The second pada, which is Mercury, is going to add a level of intellect. So a little more intelligent, a level of discernment is coming in here. The discernment is really important here. I wrote down altruism. Altruism only happens when you can step back and you can objectively see something. So Mercury gives a quick mind and the ability to, on some level, to sit back and objectively look at this or that, looking at the options. So the third pada is more Venus. So the word that I kept finding online was harmony. I don't know that I necessarily understand that term for Venus, but I will say that having a little extra Venus here, again, what we're talking about is an extra dose of sensuality. And it is in a lot of ways, it's in harmony with the overall scope of this nakshatra, which again is ruled by Venus. So again, we're talking about very attractive energy here. So very attractive if you're born into pada 3. There's going to be more, I guess, a deeper connection to your senses and what you desire and what you're passionate about. So pada 4, Mars. The word I wrote, if you can see past my shoulder, is uninhibited, fearless. Again, that's the thing about Mars. Mars is not a fearful thing. When you look at courage in someone's chart, you look at Mars. So very courageous energy here. So adding all this up is basically what we're getting is courageous, sensual, intelligent, and ultimately very willful. So these folks are sensitive. That's another thing. But again, they're still very much focused externally. So the big goal here, and I mentioned this earlier, is that there is a deep draw into going deeper and deeper and deeper into density. And as you go deeper into the mind, into illusion, into density, that's where suffering occurs. So these individuals can free themselves from, let's say, addictive patterns, obsessing about sexual things, etc., by going as intensely. And again, the sun energy here, that's going to add a lot of additional intensity. But being able to go as deeply and intensely into things like yoga or spiritual practices, occult practices, etc., as they would in basically obtaining those things that they're passionate about. If they can reach those things, if they can go into the occult things with the equivalent gusto of, how they go into, essential things, then, like I said, they're going to come out the other end as a very evolved human being. So again, final in summation, we're looking at the padas, and so we're talking about very fast evolving people here. In the next nakshatra with Kritika, we're going to see what happens when the further out planets in the associated with the padas for Kritika, how they influence and kind of slow down that life's progression. So with all that said, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I appreciate you watching. Thank you.